Right, so this is still the chamber and we're looking at cohabitation, and my guest this morning is Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo. I hope I got that right. He's an attorney at law and also a legal analyst from Haibo, Jabing Danso and Company. Good morning, sir. I hope I didn't butcher your name too much.
No, that's a good attempt.
Right, it's good to have you on this morning.
My pleasure.
We are looking at cohabitation, and let me start off by asking you if it's recognized as marriage, cohabitation in Ghana.
I must say yes. Yet, because there are several case laws that have concluded that cohabitation, given the peculiar characteristics, when issues arise and they come before the courts will look at the peculiar characteristics of the marriage, of the cohabitation, and make a determination as to whether or not it will constitute a marriage.
So this will be on a case-by-case basis.
That is so, but okay. mostly, they are considered as marriages.
What exactly does the law say?
The case law, for instance, in Mensa, which was decided in 2012 by the Supreme Court, Doche GSC, who presided over that panel, made certain rules into the jurisprudence that govern our divorce case law in Ghana. And he made a determination that where relationships have the characteristics of marriages, so where the cohabitation resembles a marriage, I mean, they live together, they live together as married couples, they do things as married couples, they carry themselves out to the whole world as married couples, they attend social events together, and particularly if they begin to acquire property, for instance, together or with the help of one another, then the court could construe such a relationship to constitute a marriage and make further consequential orders regarding the issue that is before the court. So the courts do recognize cohabitation, even though the parties may not have been properly so-called married either at custom or at law. Law, I mean at ordinance. Okay.
Do you think that in recent times couples are taking advantage of such decisions and not really going through the laid down procedures for marriages?
I do not think so. What I rather think is that we are becoming increasingly urbanized, and urban lifestyles have its own characteristics, and cohabitation increasingly is becoming a feature of urbanism, where people want to live together and study each other and see whether they are compatible before they eventually tie the knot. And these, given the peculiar nature of urban lifestyles, could take a year or two or several years. And by that time, they must have all along been doing things together, acquiring property along the line. So when issues arise 5 or 6 years later, I believe, depending on which lawyer is prosecuting the petition on behalf of the petitioner or the respondent, could make a case that the relationship be construed as one, and determinations be made in respect of whatever ancillary reliefs that will be.
Right. Now, talking about acquiring property together and so on and so forth, what happens when the marriage eventually breaks down, or the union breaks down?
The union dissolves.
What happens? Who gets what?
It depends on the relief that the party will be seeking in the courts. Always. So it will be up to the petitioner to say that I have been in this union with Mr. A
or Mrs. A
or Mrs. A for this many years, and in the course of the life of that union, we have acquired A, B, C, or D, either with my assistance or with my contribution. And if you can demonstrate evidence of the contribution, then of course.
So basically, follow the same procedures as if he had been properly married under customary law.
That is why I made a case that our courts have, not that they are beginning, but the case law has been established, settled, that where the relationship resembles one of marriage, they'll go ahead and pronounce it as marriage and make whatever determination that they are supposed to make.
So really and truly, cohabitation is another form of marriage. Really
it is,
and truly.
actually. It is. But it is becoming common among the urban young. The urban young.
Why is that?
Because it's a feature of urbanism. It's a feature of urbanism. In the rural setting where there is a primariness of everything, families are willing, or they are in a rush to call upon the other family whose member is courting their daughter to go ahead and perform the customary rites leading to marriage at custom. But in the urban setting, it takes time for couples. Like I said, they want to understudy one another for some time before they even take the further step of introducing one another to each other's family. And eventually, so this takes time.
Are there any advantages at all to cohabitation? Because some people feel that, especially when it comes to women, they are not very well protected when they cohabit.
I think I disagree, because of TV. I must say, because of TV, our women folk are getting enough education, whether literate or not literate. The visuals are telling them stories, and those who find themselves in similar situations are advised by the programs they watch on TV day in, day out. And so they are making efforts, i.e. some even go to the police station and say that I have had this problem with my husband or my wife. I didn't know that I could report the matter. And they are referred to the appropriate quarter if that particular police station has a Dofsu division. Otherwise, they refer you to a Dofsu division of another police station. So it is Dofsu's work that is increasingly bringing out some of these problems that are so endemic in our society. But the women are really protected now. For instance, the spousal property rights bill that is about to be passed, if indeed it sees the day of light in Parliament.
Will it cover cohabitation?
It's already covered. You see, I think Article 22 of the 1992 Constitution talks about equal rights in the distribution of marital property. So, first of all, we must determine which properties constitute marital property, or properties acquired during the course of the union, which could be pronounced as marriage, before you make a determination. So, where issues arise, they should seek legal assistance or legal advice, and then they'll receive the appropriate reliefs.
Okay. What happens when a party or one of the couples die?
Yes, it's very clear. There are two scenarios that could play out. Where the deceased spouse, the deceased person, leaves a will, then clearly the will will govern the distribution of his estate or her estate. But in the event that he or she leaves no will, then whatever property that she must have acquired during his lifetime falls into what we call intestacy, which is governed by our own PNDC law 111, and the formula for distribution, the steps you must take to distribute the property according to law are outlined clearly.
And will this cover couples who are cohabiting?
Yes, yes. Couples? That is why you should be able to establish to the court that before, or to the family of the deceased party, that before the deceased party departed, she and I, or he and I, were in a union.
How do you prove it? Is there any laid down procedures that you must prove? Is there anything that you must do?
There has to be instances.
So what about the number of years that you are together?
That would be very critical. That would be very critical. The number of years that you spend together will be critical. If you have children together, will be critical. If you have acquired properties together, will be critical. And if indeed you have done certain, even formed companies together, running businesses together, will also be critical. So you must do things to kind of hold yourself out as a married couple for people to have seen that you're acting together as a married couple. I began the discussion much earlier by stating that where society can see you outside and so, that is Mr. A's fiancé. Mr.
Or
A's,
even presume that you are married even if you're not.
You see, a custom, when marriages take place, we hardly are symbolized by, for instance, wearing a ring, or but so it is things like that people will use to easily identify you. But minus those things, it is the everyday activities that you carry yourself about in the name of your spouse. That I am your husband, for instance, or you are my wife. When you go out to say that, oh, that is my man, that is my woman, so to speak. And so if this travels for over some time, then when there are issues, when there are differences, then the courts will have to be called in to make a determination.
Is there a limit to the number of years that you should have been together or lived together?
No, I don't. I remember this case law by Lord Penzance, where he says that he can conceive. I do not recall the but he says that I can conceive that the marriage as conceived by Christendom is a union for life between a man and a woman, something to that effect. So it's always been the case that when you enter into such a union, the ideal situation will be to death do you apart. You understand? So you can't. But now modernization has set in, so you can even contract to be together for some number of years and part company. Yes.
Okay. And when it comes to divorce, is it the same procedure that one follows when it comes to cohabitation, when they decide to uncouple or break up?
Divorce simply means it's a judicial pronouncement on the marriage, and by judicial I mean there are at customary law you can also divorce at custom, but often the law is that if you want recognition, then you must come to a judicial body. So you can dissolve your marriage at custom, that's customary law, and still go to court and have a judicial body pronounce on it and issue a decree, a certificate of dissolution of the marriage, where you can brandish that the union between Mr. So and so and I was on this day annulled by the court.
So the procedure is the same?
It's the same.
Okay.
It's the same.
Finally, before we wrap up, are there any disadvantages to cohabiting? Would you advise couples to cohabit instead of actually going?
Yes, obviously there are advantages and there are disadvantages. Disadvantages because there are certain families, once you do not take steps to regularize your union or to formalize your union, when issues arise, it's difficult to...
They don't recognize you.
No, it's not about recognition. You see, recognition is not in the hands of the family. That's the point I'm making. The education should go out to the effect that when you want to recognize, when you are having difficulty of being recognized as a spouse of a deceased person, it doesn't lie with the opposing family. Don't go through that trauma. Just go to court. Okay. Let them come and answer you in court. Okay. Why they should not recognize you, or they also bring their case and say it is because of ABCD why we cannot recognize you, and let the court make a pronouncement. Right. But until that is done, when you have issues, you can't leave the court out. So those are some of the disadvantages. And the other disadvantage too is that you may be acquiring property in a manner that may create difficulty if you were in a proper or formalized marriage, formalized union, which is marriage, properly so-called at law. And so after you have lived for some time, you have to bring pressure to bear on your partner to formalize. Even at custom, it helps. Even at custom. So you would advise that eventually, after living together for some time, don't leave it at that. Formalize it. The road is not smooth, so once you travel, but if I can get the same benefits as a married person, what is the need? Why is it so necessary to go through that process? Like we've just discussed here, divorce proceedings the same, inheriting the same. Basically, everything is the same. It makes your case easier if you go to court to prove your case, i.e., whether or not you were validly married. If you formalize it, it makes it easier. But if you don't, then it makes the work arduous. You have to bring out a lot of indices, that's indicators to show that truly the union that he had could be construed as marriage. It makes it much more difficult. But if you take the simpler task of formalizing it, even at custom, the witnesses alone, the events, whatever, you must have taken a video coverage or taken photographs, they help the court, documentary evidence. But if you don't, if there is nothing, then you must give very long, winding oral testimonies to establish that you were married, for the court to first of all make that determination before they can listen to your ancillary prayers, that you want part of the property, you want part of that, and all that. If there are children, you want custody and all that.
Okay, thank you very much for enlightening us this morning. My guest has been Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo, and he's an attorney at law and also a legal analyst from Ayibo Jabin Danso and Company, and he joined us to talk about cohabitation.